I was born in Washington, D.C.
Who influenced you first of all? Because I mentioned Greenwich Village. It was a very important music scene, of course, wasn't it, at that time?
Yeah, and when you say who were my first influences, it's really kind of hard for me to figure this out because I'm thinking back, my parents had a lot of classical music on the on the radio. Darn, I'm having a hard time watching you guys do all your technical stuff here on the turntables and folk music, some stuff like that. Finally, they got around to the Weavers, and it was the Pete Seeger influence that I think began my, as well as the rock and roll influence. I learned to play some guitar and some rock and roll piano, and then the folk music thing came along, and rock and roll was very much déclassé, and I went to folk music for a while before the Beatles swept us back into rock and roll.
Do you get fed up with being asked about the Monkees?
I'm leaving now.
Right.
He's storming out. No, of course
I'm storming
not.
out. This is me storming out. No, of course not. This is it's my life. I recognize that. It's a little strange. I ask anybody out there. I challenge you. I challenge for anybody out there to consider where they were 35 years ago and consider what it would be like if that was all anybody ever asked them about. On the other hand, I also recognize that it was such a big phenomenon that I can't escape that. I'll have the Monkees on my back for the rest of my life.
What I would say as well, we talk about manufactured boy bands and so on in the 80s and 90s, but the Monkees were the first, I suspect, because you auditioned in Los Angeles, didn't you?
Yes, we did. Not that that's the significant aspect, but where we did is not significant. But yeah, there were evidently 400 or give or take a few who auditioned for the Monkees, and they picked me, and I haven't lived it down yet.
I find it interesting that four guys could come together from so different background, really.
Yeah.
Well, Davey was a child actor, wasn't he?
Yes, he was in Coronation Street.
And Mickey DeLenz was a child actor, wasn't he?
Yes, Mickey did a show called Circus Boy, which I don't know if it ran here, but he was the 6 or 7 or 8-year-old.
I actually remember him. I remember that program.
Blonde kid who
curly
sat
hair,
on elephants.
Sat on elephants, yeah. Taught them a lesson they'll never forget.
And Mike Nesmith was a similar background to your own, wasn't
Yes, he was like me in the sense that he was a guitar
musician.
Yeah, well, who knows,
Yeah, he's taller than Peter, and
wore a woolly hat a lot, apparently.
There was that too. Yeah. You have to. I balk at the notion of there being two musicians and two non-musicians. What you're really talking about is instrumental facility. Mickey was a campfire
Mickey's
guitar
a great
player.
singer too.
Yeah, Mickey's, and so is Davey. You don't get to be in a Lionel Bart show if you're not musical. The fact that Davey took a long time getting around to being able to play instruments doesn't mean he's not musical or not even a musician.
The voice is an instrument.
Ask Maria Callas if she thought she was a musician, and she didn't hardly play a note on the piano. As far as I know, she was terrible, very fumble-fingered.
You've done some sitcoms as well, of course, haven't you?
Yeah, I've done a few odds and ends of other sitcoms. I was on, I don't know, do you remember the Wings show? There's a show now called King of Queens that I did a little recently.
Boy Meets World.
I did a couple of episodes of Boy Meets World.
I did 5 years in Star Trek, as a matter of fact. We've been in TV.
Yeah. And Odds and Ends, a show called California Dreams, not necessarily anything that would have been shown in this country, but of course they were fabulously successful in America. You haven't heard of them here, have you?
Thanks once again for listening to this interview with Peter Tork of the Monkees. If you enjoyed it, please click on the like button, ring that notification bell so that you don't miss out in the future, and make sure you subscribe to the channel because there are many more interviews here for you to enjoy.